Good morning, everybody. This is your Monday morning kickstart. I hope you guys all had a fantastic weekend. And let's get this week off to a flying start. So, first off, our news for this week. If you haven't already seen, there's a couple of new trainings available. Pop them in the Telegram group over the past couple of weeks. We've got our golden speaking phrases, which are absolute gold for your speaking exam. These are the kind of phrases you guys, one of the most common things that you guys tell me is, I feel like I'm sounding a bit basic when I speak. I feel like I'm not using advanced vocabulary. These phrases are designed to help with that. These phrases are ones that you can use in any speaking exam on any topic, and they're going to make you sound really advanced. But also not just in the exam. You can use these in the real world too. And bonus, they're fairly academic phrases, so you can use these in your writing too. Kill two birds with one stone. The key thing with these phrases, though, is not to just see them as a list of vocabulary, okay, that you have to memorize. Because if you just sit down for an hour and try and memorize all these, that's just a big waste of your time. You're not going to remember them, and they're not going to be any use to you at all, okay? The key to activation of language is what you do with it. So it's so important, guys, and this is with any language that you're learning, that number one, don't just learn individual words, okay? So don't just take a giant list of vocabulary. That's normally what teachers give you, right? A big list of vocabulary, and it's just one individual word, and you'd have to memorize that, and you memorize it in your own language, okay? Number one, don't memorize just the individual word. Memorize useful chunks of language. So words that go together with that. Instead of learning the word detrimental as a fancy advanced word, if you just learn that word detrimental, you're never going to use it because you're not going to know what the context to use it. But if you learn blah, blah, blah has a detrimental effect on blah, 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 then you're actually going to use that. And I see you guys using that expression time and time again in the speaking sessions because we've learned it as a phrase, okay? Same with other vocabulary as well. Learn the most common way that people use it so that you know how to use it too. And that's what we've done with the golden phrases there, okay? It's not just individual words, it's chunks of language that are going to be really useful for you in any situation where you're having to give your opinion, when you're having to give reasons, advantages, disadvantages, cause, result, which is pretty much every time we open our mouth, right? But the key thing is when we're learning chunks of language is not to go crazy and try and sit for an hour and learn these giant chunks of language, okay? I want you to take 2 or 3 of these and focus on using them and pushing yourself to use them in the speaking sessions for the week. Not 50 of them, 2 or 3. If you've got a really good memory, maybe add a couple more. I've got a terrible memory, so 2 or 3 is enough for me. Push yourself to use those. Use this repeatedly during the week until they start flowing, okay? When you first try speaking with them, you're going to be looking down at your notes. It's going to be a bit hesitant when you're speaking. It's not going to have that fluidity. But once you've said it 20 times, then it's going to sound really nice and natural, and you're going to be able to say it without thinking. For example, that expression, to have a detrimental effect on. For some of you who've been here for a few months, you've been using it over and over and over and over in the speaking sessions for a while, and now it just flows nicely and naturally, okay? So we want to expand that out a little bit every week with new expressions and phrases, okay? So a few at a time, choose ones to start with that you feel would be useful for you. You can see yourself actually using. You're like, oh, I say things like that all the time. I say it's important all the time. These expressions to say that in a different way, in a more advanced way, would be great, okay? Don't learn things that you're like, I've never said anything like that in my life. No, I've never talked about that point in my life, because then you won't use it, okay? Start with the high frequency ones that you can see yourself using the most, and we gradually expand them a little every week, okay? And this is how you should be thinking about language in general. Always, when you're learning new words, think about the language that surrounds it, okay? So if you are reading The Guardian, I tell you guys to read The Guardian all the time, and you see a new word, great, okay, we're going to learn a new word. But again, don't just write that down. Look at the whole sentence. What verb goes with that word? What preposition goes with that word? What context is it used in? This is going to help you much more than just writing down individual words, which is, a common thing that we see in language academies or schools. I remember when I was working in a primary and a secondary school here in Tenerife, before I started Cambridge Conchero, I was working in a primary and a secondary school, and a kindergarten. The whole thing was like joined together, so it went from 3 years old to 18 years old, all in one place. And I got sent as the English teacher round like everybody. So I was teaching, the youngest I was teaching was 3, and the oldest I was teaching was 17. I was teaching everything in the middle. Of course, with my memory skills, I had to learn about nearly 500 names a year, and then all the names of the parents of the younger kids. It was an absolute nightmare. Anyway, that's not the point. But the older kids, I remember looking at their homework that they were being given for English from their, like, because we always had 2 teachers. No, they had their English teacher, who was the Spanish-speaking English teacher, and then who did half the classes, and I did the other half of the classes, which were the pronunciation, the communication style classes. And I remember looking at the homework that my partner teacher had given them, and he literally just gave them a list of about 100 words, just with the word and then the direct translation into Spanish. And their homework was to memorize those within, I think it was like 3 or 4 days. It was like they were giving them on Monday, and they were going to have a test on those words on Friday, and they just had to memorize them. And like, for me, that is very traditional. I think they do it in many schools and many academies, but it is a giant waste of time. Number one, that student's never going to remember 100 words in a week, on top of all the other homework they have for math, science, and everything else. But it's not useful at all, because they do not know how to use that in context. They're just doing a memorization exercise, and then after their test on Friday, they're going to forget the few words that they did have memorized and had no idea how to use when they're speaking. This is why people come to me basically and say that I know quite a lot of vocabulary, but I can't speak, no, or I keep using the same basic words when I'm speaking. Is because we have all this passive language that we've never actually practiced using in real life. We don't know how to use it in context. We don't know the collocations that go with it. And this is the issue. So that is why we want to solve that issue by learning that vocabulary, but learning it in context and practicing it, okay? We have to practice it. You have to push yourself to use it in the speaking sessions or writing. You must use them. It's not enough to just be like, oh, I'll practice it in my head. I'll have a conversation in my head. It has to be out loud. Your mouth has to get used to the shape of the words, how to say the words. It has to be out loud. Otherwise, it's not going to help. Okay, so really push yourself, guys. Push yourself to try new things in the speaking sessions. Remember, mistakes are fantastic. Mistakes are amazing. It means you're pushing and it means you're trying new things. So please come along and try out some new things. Okay. Other new training that we put up was for how to use ChatGPT, how to use AI to get extra speaking practice, extra feedback on your speaking, and of course on your writing as well. So if you haven't watched that already, have a go. Have a look at it. It's really useful. Moving on. Another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about this Monday was, and this came up after a visit to the doctors recently. Now, I absolutely love my GP. The GP is what we call general practitioner. GP is what we call the family doctor in the UK. So if you have something wrong with you, the first port of call, so the first person you'll see, the first port of call is your GP. So I love my GP. She's called Dasil. She's really, really nice, really friendly, and she's visited Aberdeen, where I'm from in Scotland. Anyway, so I went to her and I said, not feeling very well. These are the symptoms. This is how I'm feeling. And we kind of had a chat about it. She sent me for some blood tests, for some scans, and eventually kind of came up with a diagnosis, and then gave me a prescription, some medicine to solve the problem, which is great. She spent a really good amount of time with me, asked me loads of questions, kind of making sure that she understood kind of my medical history, seeing if there was anything that could be causing the issue, and really took that time to make sure she understood it thoroughly before she gave me the prescription and sent me off to the pharmacy. So could you imagine if we rewind that scenario, if I went into the consultation room, like, hello doctor, hello Dr. Dasil, not feeling very well, can you help? And if she said, yep, sure, here you go, here's your prescription, bye. Could you imagine if that situation happened in the doctors? It would be crazy, right? But this is what I see quite often in the Cambridge Advanced exam when people are studying. People do an exercise, do an activity, and say it's a reading task. They're like, okay, I've done the reading task. I got 4 out of 8, and that's it. We got 4 out of 8, and then they decide to do another test. I'm like, okay, this time I got 3 out of 8. And then, like, okay, this time I got 6 out of 8. This is like the same as going to the doctor and say, I'm not feeling well, which is the 4 out of 8, 3 out of 8, 5 out of 8, like there's a problem. And instead of asking all the questions, taking the history, doing some tests, blood tests to work out why we're only on 4 out of 8 or 3 out of 8, like what the problem is, rather than asking all those questions, we just go straight for, let's try some medicine. No? Let's just do another test and see if that helps. Oh, that didn't help. Let's try and do another one and see if that helps. So if this happened in the doctor's office, you would think it's crazy. Like, you need to ask questions. You need to find out what the problem is before we try a medicine or before we try to do another test. So exactly the same with the exam. The most important part of doing any exercise is your analysis after you do the exercise. And this is what most people skip. Certainly when I was working in the primary schools and the secondary schools and the language academies, this was always skipped. But this is the most important part, okay? Every time you do a task, look at it afterwards and think, why did I get those questions wrong? What was the reason behind it? What's the thing that I need to fix to improve in those areas? And often you're going to be able to find that answer by yourself. You're going to be able to look at it and see exactly what caused the issue. And then we can give you some training to fix that particular issue before you go and try another exercise, okay? But if you can't see it by yourself, then that's when you need to contact me. That's when you need to go into the Telegram group, go to the question section and ask the questions there so that I can help you, so that we can give you the correct prescription to solve the problem. Okay? The same with the doctors. If I have a headache and a runny nose and I've got a cold, I know what the problem is and I know how to solve that myself. I can take some paracetamol, get some rest, and I know I'm going to get better. But if I have some strange pain and I'm not sure what's causing it, then I need that doctor to help with that analysis, okay? And that's what I'm here for. So yes, 90% of the time, you'll be able to do that analysis by yourself, and that's fantastic and that's amazing. That's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to be able to be autonomous students and, you know, to be able to go on in the future and take all the tools that you're learning here and use them by yourself. I absolutely want that. But, you know, there will be times, there will be the odd occasion that you need that extra support and help. And that's what I'm here for, okay? So please ask questions if you need help with that analysis, okay? Because it's the most important part of improving and learning. Not just in English, in everything, I would argue. So it's an important tool going forward in the world as well. Anyway, that is my motivational, well, I'm not sure if that was motivational, but those are my tips for this week. I hope you find them useful. I hope you guys can try and put some of them into practice this week while you're studying. And yeah, guys, I will see you in the speaking sessions very soon. And if you have any questions, let me know.